Hello, and welcome to Virtual Investor Conferences. My name is Cecilia, and on behalf of OTC Markets, as well as our co-host, Zacks Small Cap Research, we're very pleased you've joined us for our next live presentation from BioVaxys Technology. Their session will be moderated by Brad Sorensen, Senior Equity Research Analyst with Zacks Small Cap Research. Please note you can submit questions for the presenter in the box to the left of the slides. You can also view company availability for one-on-one meetings through the Schedule Meetings tab found on the conference platform. It's nice to welcome James Passon, founder and chief executive officer of BioVaxys Technology Corp, which trades on the OTCQB venture market under the symbol BVAXF and on the CSE under the symbol BIOV. Welcome, James and Brad.
So I'll provide a brief introduction to BioVaxys. I just mentioned our management team. I'm James Passon. I come from a hedge fund background. I managed a hedge fund for 18 years in New York. We've managed a large portfolio. I was quite active in biotechnology, but I would consider myself to be an entrepreneur and not a pharmaceutical specialist. My colleague, Kenneth Kovan, is a lifelong pharma and biotech consultant and executive and advisor, and has deep knowledge of the industry. And then Dr. David Bird was a pioneer in cancer immunotherapy. He's our chief medical officer. So we are a clinical stage biopharmaceutical company dedicated to improving lives with our technology, which is based on DPX, which I'll get to in a minute. It's an immune educating platform. And we also have another platform called Haptinex, which is a way to create therapeutic vaccines for cancer. We also are targeting other indications, including infectious diseases and allergy desensitization. Really, the most important thing to know about my company is that in February of this year, we acquired 100% of all the intellectual property owned by a now bankrupted Canadian biotechnology company that was listed on NASDAQ called IMV. We have over 120 patents we acquired and other intellectual property as well. So IMV was a very important stock. I mean, they invested about $200 million in R&D cumulatively, and they had excellent results in many peer-reviewed and published clinical trials. It was funded by very large life science investors, even the Canadian government. Its peak market cap was over $300 million US. And as I said, they invested about $200 million of R&D. And unfortunately for IMV shareholders, the company went bankrupt. But we picked up all of this intellectual property for $1 million in February. So with the core problem with current vaccines is that the aqueous emulsions that are used as a delivery vehicle, they don't stay at the site of injection. They leach the cargo out into tissues, which potentially could have very serious toxicity issues, not to mention less efficiency. Also, quite limitation in the size of payloads. And really, and also mRNA also has issues of getting better quality lipid-based delivery technologies. So we have with DPX platform, it's a lipid and oil emulsion. It's an immunocapsulation technology. There's no aqueous component, so it stays at the site of injection. And also, we can freeze it, store it for years, and accommodate much larger payloads than simply, for example, mRNA. We can accommodate proteins, peptides, virus-like particles, innate immune stimulators. And so essentially so Haptinex is our legacy platform. This is a way to create an immune response against neoantigens. This is really our legacy program, which we love, but we're mostly focused on the IMV acquisition. We have a robust clinical pipeline. We have phase 3 ready assets, MVPS, which is in this indication used for ovarian cancer. The phase 2 results were published. You can read them. The results were great, very encouraging. We also have phase 1 and phase 2 ready assets, both in various oncology indications as well as RSV and anthrax. The newer initiative we have is in allergy desensitization. And I'll mention that on that in a minute. We're very excited about that. In terms of corporate development, we're looking to license or partner most of our advanced clinical stage assets because the amount of capital involved is quite significant. And also, we find that we're excited about the earlier stage projects, which I'll go through in a minute. So MVPS, it targets the survivin antigen, which is overexpressed in certain types of tumors, including in the case of ovarian cancer. It's well known as an interesting target for cancer. So essentially, MVPS is the survivin, which we in-licensed from Merck in the DPX as the immunoencapsulation of survivin. And the results have been great. We're excited for the phase 3 trial. As I mentioned, we're looking for a partner to actually take that over. DPX SurMage, it's very exciting, a bit earlier stage. That includes some additional antigens, the MAGE antigens. So it's kind of a broader, it's hitting more targets. DPX RSV, we're looking to out-license that because there is an approved RSV vaccine, but the results from the work that IMV did are very encouraging. And then our preclinical phase 1 assets, DPX mRNA, the first mRNA vaccines that were approved under emergency use authorization was BioNTech/Pfizer and Moderna for COVID. And it's widely believed that there's a mRNA revolution coming with personalized cancer treatments, personalized cancer vaccines using mRNA. We believe that DPX is the ideal delivery vehicle for mRNA. And if that's the case, it's going to have immense value to the pharma industry. So that's one of our products. We also have DPX with neoantigens and very, very interesting results in terms of the preclinical research. Peanut allergy, we've recently signed an agreement with a private company in Canada that is going to essentially run the preclinical work on peanut allergy as well as egg allergy in animal models. And here, what's quite exciting is that particular product, it's possible that, and we'll get into details later, that a single injection, a single subcutaneous injection would be enough over time to result in allergy desensitization, which would be huge because the current approved treatment involves multiple injections. I mean, like injections every week for years. Flu, really interesting results. We think that there's definitely room for a more efficacious, flu vaccine. We have 2 licensees in animal healthcare. One of which is Zoetis, which is listed on the New York Stock Exchange. It's an $80 billion market cap company. It was spun out of Pfizer. It's the largest animal healthcare company in the world. They're using our previous version of our lipid encapsulation technology to deliver an antigen. It's an immunocastration vaccine, basically to suppress essentially suppressing fertility, and this is very important for farmers to be able to manage their livestock and not have most of the calories going into bearing babies. So Zoetis is their first target market is Australia and then Brazil. Those are huge markets for cattle. So potentially we could get license revenue. Once they get approval, they're obligated to pay various milestone payments and a license and a royalty to us on revenue. Our other partner, Spavac, is using it for similar indications, but not in cattle. They're focused on wildlife, fish farming, a number of very interesting indications. And so Spavac's expecting to get approval in the United States next year. And what's great about animal healthcare is you don't have to deal with the FDA or equivalent regulator. So it's much easier to get regulatory approval for animal healthcare. So potentially we could get income streams from two licensees. And then we've in-licensed from Merck the survivin antigen, which I mentioned earlier. ProCare Health Iberia, it's a large private women's healthcare company based in Spain, and they've partnered on our Haptinex-based ovarian cancer vaccine. In terms of milestones this year, so as I mentioned, we acquired the IMV intellectual property in February. We're doing we're strengthening our research team. We're recruiting some leading people involved in IMV doing the research to come in as advisors and help us sort of rebuild all the work that IMV was doing. So we're getting more and more information about trials that were not completed as a result of the IMV bankruptcy and then the collapse of funding for those trials, and the data that is really quite mind-blowing. So we're going through that. We want to expand the board and management team, bring in some more people from the pharma industry, biotechnology industry that could help us develop BioVaxys following the IMV IP acquisition. And we're going to launch preclinical work both on allergy and mRNA, which we think both of those are massive opportunities. In terms of the investment opportunity, we bought $200 million of R&D for $1 million. Our market cap's a fraction of what IMV was trading at over a long period of time. There's numerous peer-reviewed and published trial results from the excellent work that IMV was doing. And we have phase 3 ready assets, and it's great because we didn't pay for the phase 1 or phase 2 trial. Our technology is widely relevant to the industry and to the pharma industry, the biotechnology industry. Everybody needs a better delivery platform. We think we have the best because of its versatility and its overall safety and efficacy profile. All right. Hey, Brad, I'll take it over to you.
All right. Thanks. No, a lot to talk about here. A lot going on with this company. Very exciting, and a lot of exciting developments that we can talk about. But let's go back to the beginning, because I'm an investment guy, and I'm sure the investors are all kind of asking the same question I am, and want you to negotiate our next home purchases and car deals. How do you come across $200 million worth of research for $1 million?
Well, it's partly, I would fully admit, it's luck, but also it's tenacity. So I was familiar with IMV. My team, my colleagues, we really admired IMV in terms of their science and clinical progress. I never bought stock, thankfully. So I didn't follow IMV from a financial point of view. So I was quite surprised when the company went bankrupt. So initially, the bankruptcy estate hired a consulting company called FDI to market the intellectual property. And we were invited to participate in that, which is we then signed a non-disclosure agreement. We looked at the data. We just fell in love with the opportunity. That sale process failed. And then what happened is the secured lender to IMV that already had collateralized the intellectual property, they did a credit bid and they swapped their debt or part of their debt for all of the intellectual property. And that was approved by the bankruptcy court in Canada as well as in Delaware. So then they had a sale process, and we were invited to participate, and we ended up with a winning bid. So we started good faith discussions at the end of last year, and thankfully we completed the acquisition in February of this year.
Wow, that's great. So just one last kind of big picture question. So since you knew the financials and had studied the previous company, what they failed. I mean, bankruptcy is failure in the business world. That's what we talk about, even though they have some very successful research. So what are you going to do different? What can investors expect you to do different than IMV was doing in order to create a valuable company for them?
Yeah, I mean, it's very simple. Our burn rate on an annualized basis is like 94% lower than what IMV's average burn rate was. So for a pre-revenue company to have a very, very high burn rate with very high salaries and lots of fixed costs, it becomes difficult, especially if you're trying to do, $20 to $40 million of clinical research and product development every year. So our goal is to keep our overhead as tight as possible, be very careful about when we take on obligations to spend money. and really focus on the science, on business development, on partnerships, and build a team organically. Now that we're onboarding, and we're going to have a lot of announcements about former IMV people coming on as advisors, they're going to help us to build up a team that will be able to get us back into the game of developing newer products. We will look for licensing and partnership opportunities. We know that we have the ideal delivery platform for antigens. So we just, and other things, not just, we just need to get in front of the right, pharma and biotechnology companies to take a look at our delivery platform. So, really our focus, we want to get some license revenue, as opposed to, as they say, YOLO on a very expensive phase 3 trial. That's really the way we're looking at it. And we see a lot of opportunity to develop the preclinical assets that are quite exciting.
Okay, so let's go to that then. Next, I think that's a good place to go. Is there explain to investors maybe a little bit more about, is there a two-stage kind of theory that the later stage assets we're going to develop with partnerships, but we're going to develop the preclinical ones in-house, and that's why you're bringing in the researchers that you can from INV and maybe some other places to do that? Is that the plan at this point?
Yeah, absolutely. And look, I won't roll out a phase 3 trial, but I'm cognizant of our market cap, which is quite low. So we don't want to just burden the equity with having to fund a very expensive trial. I'd rather partner it out, give away some of the economics, but still get some upfront payment and significant royalties and milestone payments in the back end.
Okay. And you've obviously seen, and investors can go out there and see, like you said, go out and read that those late stage treatments, the phase 1 and phase 2 results have been pretty impressive. Have you begun, you can only, I don't want to take you down a road you can't go because I know only some things, but have you begun those discussions about partnerships, or are you still determining, because it's a very quick process? You just bought the company in February. So are you still determining what the assets are and getting advice on how much they might be worth, or have you just started those discussions at this point?
Excellent point. Like it's still early stage. It's been great. We've onboarded somebody from the finance side of IMV that has a lot of information about the pharma and biotechnology companies that IMV was talking to. It's quite helpful. We have had a call with a mega Japanese pharma company, but it's very early stage.
Right.
So I'm not going to say that we're going to have a licensing deal tomorrow, but we're starting the process. But we will continue to get more aggressive as we get more data, because this was very complicated, a bankruptcy and then a sale of intellectual property. So we've been gathering some of the. This is not all the data. Not all of the data was available when we did the deal.
Right. No, I understand, and yeah, like you said, this is a very quick process. And I think that's why it's helpful to kind of be on a situation like this to get the information out to investors, because it was a bit of a, I went through it. It's kind of a convoluted process to be able to figure out. And what's at the end result is a very intriguing company. So I want to touch briefly on, because I think this is the thing that could bring in, looking at it, the revenue the quickest and maybe the most eventually, but what is your vision for the DPX delivery platform? You've talked about a little bit about I guess, describing as basic. We're not PhDs here, so we don't want the scientific mumbo jumbo. Kind of in the basic terms, why the DPX platform is better than what's existing, and then what your vision is for it going forward.
Yeah, so just in a quick summary, so every other lipid-based delivery platform that we're aware of has some kind of aqueous component, and so when you have hydrophilic and hydrophobic components in the same encapsulation technology or emulsion, it'll begin to break apart in the body.
Okay.
And so when it begins to break apart in the body, the contents leach out of the cells. It does generate an immune response, which is great. No argument there. But a lot of the content that you're delivering is just going into tissue, because what generates immune response, the adaptive immune response, which are T cells and B cells. B cells are antibodies. So T cells and B cells, the lymph node system. So you want to communicate with lymph nodes. Anything else, it's great, but I mean, it indirectly will go to lymph nodes. So DPX, because it stays at the site of injection with a subcutaneous injection, it's actively taken up by antigen-presenting cells and dendritic cells to deliver the information to the lymph nodes that then generate the T cell and B cell response. That's all that it does. So it's not accumulating in the liver or kidneys or circulating. It's staying at the site of injection, communicating with the lymph node system. So there's, theoretically, it'll have, it may have, I mean, who knows, but it may generally have a better safety profile. And also, we believe it's more efficient. It's more efficacious because your own, the whole system of DPX is based on communicating with lymph nodes.
Yeah, you get more bang for your buck. The treatment gets where it's supposed to go much more efficiently.
Yeah. And one other thing on DPX is it accommodates very large payloads. You can load it with multiple antigens. You can load it with even peptides, larger particles. So some of the lipid nanotech carriers, for example, as we've seen, they really are only good at accommodating very tiny cargo like mRNA. Now, we can accommodate mRNA, but being able to package larger stuff in it provides a lot more sort of breadth of products that we can develop. An example of this is peanuts. So there's a particular peptide in peanuts that causes allergy. So we can load that peptide into DPX, and then DPX communicates with the lymph nodes, and we can educate the immune system over time to desensitize to, for example, peanuts. But it could be anything: dog, cat, eggs, whatever.
Yeah, that is very helpful. Getting that treatment to the required place is a huge step forward. So is the DPX platform market ready, or is there more testing that needs to go on? You mentioned about safety. Are there still some safety testing that needs to go on, or is it marketable right now?
I mean, look, there's been outstanding safety and efficacy data from the excellent work done from IMV in various phase 1, phase 2 trials. So there's no issue there. But none of the DPX products have been approved by the FDA or equivalent regulator overseas. So to get approval, we or some third party needs to do a phase 3 trial and then present the data to the FDA or whatever regulator and to get approval. But what I will say is there's utterly immense money pouring into, for example, personalized mRNA-based cancer vaccines. And we think we have a better delivery platform than the ones that the main developers are using. So there could be an opportunity there for them to use their, whatever they're doing into our delivery platform. Then we have our own products, surrounded by our patent portfolio, where we control the products. And, we already have in-license, for example, from Merck Survivin. We didn't do it. IMV did it, but we have the benefit of that in-license.
Yeah, so finding, and there should be, just analyzing what I did, there should be a lot of interest in this because you can use it with yours and your technology, but also a lot of other people can use it with theirs as well. And so I wanted you mentioned the delivery system, and I wanted to, because when I talked to you before, you were very excited about this, and I am too. And I'm sure lots of people out there, even listening, have children with allergies and, the peanut problem. My wife's a teacher and she knows all about these peanut allergy problems. And so explain a little more about the results you've seen and the excitement you have about the allergy treatment that you're developing.
Well, I mentioned one of our licensees, Spayvac, that is doing some animal health applications and immuno castration, immunofertility suppression. In some of the studies that they're doing with their own research partners, that are significant research organizations. For example, there's a study, believe it or not, in elephants in Thailand because there's an overpopulation of elephants. What they found is that one shot with our lipid encapsulation technology. Now, this is not DPX. It's like right before DPX. So it's what became DPX. So it's an older version, but it's fine. One shot with an elephant would last 7 years.
Wow.
So we know that it's long lasting from the animal data as well as the human data. So the problem with the existing approved allergy treatment, and I know this personally because my son has a very bad peanut allergy. I had to take him to the hospital when he was a toddler, and so my wife and I considered, do we go through the desensitization protocol? But I don't remember the exact schedule, but it was something like weekly injections for 2 years, and it's just not practical. I mean,
No.
like I mean, you're going to have to go to the doctor every week. So, essentially, very few people go through that process. I mean, I would say some adults that are like obsessed with cats, they'll go through the process, but it's a big issue because now if there could be one or two shots and that's it,
Yeah.
That's going to completely dominate the allergy desensitization market.
Yeah, definitely. And so you're in preclinical with that, is that right?
Yeah, we're in preclinical. We're about to fire up. We're with McMaster University in Canada, a fantastic university. They have a great allergy division department, and the whole thing is really ready to go. So we can do preclinical research, see the data, which we think is going to be great, and then move on to human studies. And what I like about allergy is that the trial costs are should be much lower than oncology because you're not dealing with dying volunteers. You're dealing generally healthy volunteers. And I've seen clinical trials that were for allergy desensitization that had very modest budgets. So we think we could fund all the way to phase 3 ourselves.
Yeah, that's what I've seen too. That those allergy trials, you have much more willing participants a lot of times because they want to get rid of their allergies, and they're very prevalent. It's not hard to find people with allergies that want to get them treated and are willing to undergo these trials. So, well, there's a lot of other things we could talk about, but unfortunately, we're running out of time, and I wanted to give you a chance to just wrap up. But I encourage investors, if you have more questions, there's a way to contact the company on the slide there, or after the presentation, there'll be information about how to schedule a one-on-one. So, and they're very willing to answer questions. They're very excited about what they're doing. So I'm going to leave it with you, James, to kind of finish us off and last thought with investors.
Well, so we now control 200 million of R&D. We paid almost nothing for it. I believe that is going to be one of the great biotech and pharmaceutical acquisitions of the decade. There was a deal yesterday with a Canadian company that has a lipid-based nanotech delivery platform. Did a licensing deal, a $600 million licensing deal. That was actually just announced yesterday with a large pharma. So we have a lipid-based delivery technology platform. We have a tiny market cap. We're going to keep the burn rate low so we can really deliver for shareholders. And I am the largest shareholder, so I'm very motivated to have the stock appreciate and to develop liquidity.
Well, yeah, a company with low costs, high research, and a very invested owner is always something that investors should look at. So, and a good runway to go for. So, we're out of time. I want to thank all the investors that have listened in. And like I said, please contact the company if you have more questions. It's very interesting and a lot of opportunity. Thank you, everybody.